The next question is from Gabe Tehran. I think this one is for Emilio. What will the upfront costs be to the city of Oxnard?
There is no upfront cost to the city of Oxnard.
Okay, again from Gabe Tehran. What are the anticipated ongoing costs, programmatic and facility maintenance for the city? What is the share of cost the county, state, or other entities will contribute?
Tracy or Brittany?
Yeah, so that one, there aren't costs to the city and there are not ongoing costs to the city. For the operations, I believe we did talk about how much that is per unit already. And again, in our, I'm just kind of looking to the side at numbers I have. So some of these numbers for funding are estimates. You know, we'll still have to submit for low-income housing tax credits and potentially another state program that is designed for affordable housing and for housing for homeless individuals. So all of that is not nailed down, but what is nailed down so far is that we will not need any funding from the city, and the county has already determined their contribution, which will be the $3.5 million to add to the funds from Project HomeKey.
And just to speak to that briefly, the $3.5 million from the county is also CARES Act funding that's to be used to shelter people during COVID. We've also made a commitment of some of our permanent local housing allocation dollars, which are dollars specifically for the development of affordable housing. So that is the money that the county is looking to contribute. And additionally, some CDBG COVID money during interim operations.
And Jessica, if I could just repeat, because I want to make sure that the public at large hears this, as has been stated earlier, once this converts, as Brittany and I both said, once this converts into permanent housing, this isn't the kind of thing that we're going back for over and over and over again for funding for operations. It's built in already into the budget. So there isn't this ongoing thing where it's a continued suck against, you know, the city's general fund, for example. That's just not how this, that's not how these projects work.
Okay, I'm going to read the next question from Gabe Tehran and then go up to Carla Ramirez just to keep continuity. I think this one is for Brittany. What type of site improvements will occur for this facility as a result of moving forward with this? What will the city share? What will be the city share of the cost? Who will now own the property? Oxnard, County of Ventura, or the state?
Mm-hmm. So the city will not have a share in the cost, and ultimately a partnership will be formed with CDP and Mercy House, and we will own the property. And there is money in the budget for site improvements. So, you know, again, we haven't nailed down the scope, but that would be everything from repairing the parking lot, any exterior paint, or if we have landscaping needs, just really, you know, funds for improving the exterior of the unit. And then of course we have funds set aside to do any rehabilitation inside the unit. So there will be improvements to the exterior and interior of the property.
Okay. So going to the question from Carla Ramirez, I think this one is again from Mercy House. She says, I just have a concern about the mention of security guards and multiple security cameras on the property. How do you plan to balance the need to maintain safety while not making this seem like it is a prison or like the residents are being treated like criminals?
So, no, I think it's a great question. And that's a great question. I'm sure there are probably 10 other people who are online who want even more security and more, and more cameras. So there's something of a balancing act here. But to your question, and I think it's a really good one, this is why we work with certain security companies as long as we do, right? Because we are able to provide detailed training for how they interface with our clients in a way that is respectful. This is why, for example, over the years, we've walked away from security companies that maybe had too much of a kind of a hyped up macho kind of militaristic bent, because those aren't our values and that wasn't helpful to our clients. You touch on something that's really super important. Everything that we do needs to be what's known as trauma informed, right? It's called a trauma informed care, both shelter in housing. And that is why we train our staff a certain way, how to de-escalate tense situations, do motivational, training them on motivational interviewing techniques, whatever it might be. We do the exact same thing with our vendors. In terms of the cameras for the periphery, really that's for people's safety. That is also just, really what we're looking to and for those external cameras is if anything is going out in the neighborhood, if it's same kind of thing that somebody might put, like outside of your home, for example. But I think it's a good question because we want to make sure that we balance this notion of security and safety and accountability to the broader neighborhood, while at the same time making sure that everything that we do passes the trauma-informed test.
Great, thank you. The next question comes from Elizabeth Gullner. Many of the clients have some income. Do they pay anything?
Yes, I can take that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so typically for permanent supportive housing, the rents would be set at 30% of that resident's income level. So sometimes individuals find themselves homeless, but they do have a job, particularly if it's in the service industry and they just can't afford their rent, or maybe they've been hit with other bills. And if they don't have that type of income, then it becomes 30% of SSI. So it's really just at this level, 30% of whatever that resident can afford.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Greg Runyon. I think this one might be for Emilio. What was the process for picking the partners for this project? Was there an RFP? With respect to Mercy House, Mercy House has been involved in every homeless project, and I believe that it is important for everyone to understand the process.
It was an RFP that was issued. It was a competitive procurement. The combined team of CDP and Mercy responded to that RFP. They were scored by a panel team that interviewed both them and the other respondents and chosen in that way. Yes, Mercy House is involved in other homeless projects. Don't know whether every homeless project, but at least others. And in those others that were also procured via an RFP, which was also competitive.
I'll also share that in reviewing that request for qualifications or RFP, we had 5 cities in the county all create an evaluation panel, and we all jointly reviewed both of the responses we received. So it was a joint effort with the city of Oxnard and other cities as well.
Yeah, and lastly, I'll add, in response to that RFQ, CDP and Mercy House did partner together to respond as a team. We've done previous projects together and they've been successful, so we just wanted to keep moving that forward.
Okay, thank you. This next question comes from Laura Urgel. She says, I would love to be a part of this process and program. Will you be hiring extra staff? So perhaps that question's for Mercy House.
The answer is yes. Contact, gosh, I'm not quite sure how to do this, but the answer is yes. And you can, James, if you wouldn't mind sharing your email address, perhaps this person can reach out to you and you can walk them through our HR process.
Absolutely. Let me see. I can give you my email address, or I'm not sure how I can get it onto the screen, but it's James. It's pretty simple. It's James B, as in Brooks, at mercyhouse.net. And if you aren't able to get through that, you can reach back out to Jessica maybe, and she can get it to, I can make sure that she gets it to you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
And absolutely, please join us. Thank you. That's great.
And I like to say, you don't have to wait until then. We actually, in our other shelter in Oxnard, we can use help there as well. So if you're wanting to work, we need extra help. Yes.
Okay, this next question is from Michelle Kinnan, and it's I think this one might be for Mercy House as well, maybe Brittany. How long will it be a temporary shelter before it turns into permanent housing? What is considered permanent housing? Is it 1 week, 1 month, 1 year stay?
Yeah, so on that one, it's a little tricky. We don't know exactly how long it will stay as interim housing. It has to be converted under 2 years, so it could be up to a year and a half, 2 years. We're still determining that timeline. And then Larry, I don't know if you want to speak to what exactly constitute the transition from interim to permanent on the resident side.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that there's a big discussion. I could go into a long discussion on the difference between the qualitative difference between the two. But at the risk of sounding really sort of abrupt, it's kind of in the name, right? It's permanent. Permanent housing is permanent housing. It's where you live until you choose not to, or if if there is a reason in terms of your behavior as a tenant that it creates a situation where you no longer can be a tenant. But it's permanent housing is not shelter. It is not temporary. It is by design permanent.
Okay, thank you. This next question is from Steven Sutler. He asks, what about people who are on the spectrum? And I see that he put a follow-up to that question in the chat, and it says, are they welcome? Will they get assistance they need? So I think that question might go to you, Mercy House.
Well, again, yes, if they are in coordinated entry, but again, remember, this is housing for persons who are homeless, and that is the specific target. And the folks that would be referred into housing come from the coordinated entry system. Some may be on the spectrum, others may not. But it's not just open low-income housing for persons in need. It is really specific to persons who are chronically homeless.
Great. This next question comes from Douglas Partello. He asks, how long can a guest stay? Is there a limit? So I guess that question might be asking about the emergency shelter.
So our operating theory in terms of whether it's the shelter or anyone else, it doesn't make sense to us to impose arbitrary timelines. When somebody is in one of our navigation centers, which is really more the appropriate term, when somebody is in one of our navigation systems, the whole point then is to immediately work with them on a housing plan. The idea isn't to fix someone in shelter, but to get them prepared for housing. So within 2 weeks, everybody that is in one of our navigation centers will have a housing plan that says that basically is a strategy to get you out of the shelter and into some form of permanent housing, right? If we're doing our jobs properly, each person would have 2 or 3 different strategies because, the best laid plans of mice and men don't always work out. So you have to have multiple strategies because we're dealing with some very vulnerable populations. So it doesn't make any sense, and it's not been a best practice for, oh gosh, at least a couple of decades to say, hey, this is a 3-month shelter or this is a 6-month shelter. Really that's not what's done anymore. Really what you do is you're creating shelter and trying to get them placed in housing as soon as possible. Then what you want to do is try to set targets for how quickly somebody gets up and out. And for some people, it could be short. For some people, it could be a couple of weeks. Another person, they might have multiple disabilities that they're wrestling with, right? There may be some severe serious and persistent mental health disorders. There may be, some quirks to their specific housing need that they need. And so they could be with you for over a year. It really kind of depends on the specific needs of the person. But the worst thing you want to do in operating a shelter or navigation center is kick somebody out simply because so-called time is up. As long as people are doing what they're supposed to do and working on their housing plan, that's the entire point. The point isn't just to keep people in shelter. The point is to get people placed into permanent housing.
Okay, thank you. This next question comes from Greg Runyon. Will people with previous felonies who are no longer on probation or parole and are not registered 290 sexual offenders be eligible for program and housing?
Yes.
Okay. This next question comes from Ebony Adams Gaxiola. I think we've answered a few of these questions before, but I'll just read it out loud in case anyone has anything to add. Who is going to make sure that there isn't excessive homeless people lined up to be placed in the shelter? There was an increase in trash and drug paraphernalia and sales when Project HomeKey was in effect. How will that be kept in check? Will there be an increase in patrols because of the unpredictability of the homeless? Mental health issues and drug addiction? There are $500,000 homes right behind that hotel. What will be done to make sure this property does not decrease their property value?
So let me just jump in with 4 quick things. I will defer any sort of city response, obviously, to Emilio. But again, just as a reminder on a couple of points, we are not currently operating the facility. So I am very sorry for the current situation. That's not a Mercy House thing, number one. Number two, again, as we've stated, there will not be people lining up to get into a shelter. That's not the type of shelter that we operate. It's based upon a bed reservation system, which we've talked about earlier during this conversation, specifically to address that very need that you have. Unless I'm mistaken, and James, correct me if I'm overreaching here, in all of our navigation centers, in addition to patrols that the city might do, Mercy House also extends itself in its perimeter as well to make sure that our clients aren't in the immediate neighborhood creating any sort of havoc or trouble or so forth. And that's something that we've always been committed to. And then finally, again, I don't know if you were around when I made my earlier comments, the notion of appreciating property values is a value we share. This is why we and our partners, whether it's CDP or something we do on our own, why we invest ourselves on creating physical places that are beautiful, right? That enhance a neighborhood. This is why we invest so much in our operation plan to make sure that it doesn't in any way diminish the surrounding community. And again, just to repeat, no one can predict the future. All we can guarantee is our responsiveness. But what I can point to is a 30-year history of us in no way, shape, or form ever creating an environment that was a problem for our neighbors or in any way promoted a decline in their property values. There's no predicting the future, but what I can say is we have a 30-year history of that just simply never happening.
Emilio, this is Christy Madden with the county. I just want to let everyone know that we never got any complaints about this property. I don't know that you did, Emilio. I checked with Tara and we never heard anything through OES or anything else about Project HomeKey at Vagabond. So we apologize, but we never heard any complaints about that.
Only the response for service that I mentioned at the beginning of the call, those two. Also, to add to what Larry was saying, we will definitely partner with the operation there. My staff will monitor, and also the Oxnard Police Department. And so not only just partner, but enforce. So if there is an outward impact on the operation, that will be a violation of code, and code compliance will go out and enforce against CDP. We don't expect that to happen, but CDP and Mercy both know that those violations do occur, and we will be enforcing those violations.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question seems to be more of a comment, but I'll read it out anyway. And I think we have addressed a lot of these concerns about behavior around the property as it is now. So it comes from, it's signed by Steve Bahunin, although it's under Jennifer Bahunin's name. The county has not done a good job while the motel was a COVID shelter. This is going to be really bad for our home values and our security. We need to stop this at all costs. The people around the motel have complained about urine and feces in the bushes around the property. The county and OPD have done nothing to remedy this situation. So I'm not sure if anyone has anything more to speak to about that. I know we've talked, we've just answered questions about the property values and also about the good neighbor policy and staff support and security that are going to be around this new development.
So the only thing I can add, I mean, like I said before, I've only received the report that I mentioned at the beginning regarding the pulse for service, and we've already covered extensively how Mercy and CDP will operate and build and design and et cetera. So those questions have been asked and answered. However, relative to this comment, I haven't heard any of these complaints. Not that they would have come to the director of housing, but I haven't heard them. Despite that, tomorrow morning, I will call the chief of police and I will have a conversation about these complaints. And if there's something that we need to rectify right now, we will get that done.
Jessica, can I just one thing, and I realize this isn't what we're here to talk about, but you know, we at Mercy House, we've operated in several different counties, and you know, I do want to defend the county to this extent. With the COVID pandemic, with how everything came, with the directives from the governor's office and what needed to be done, you know, the circumstances under which the county found itself having to operate were absolutely extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And I just really want to point that out. There was a public health crisis. I think it's not unreasonable to suggest that maybe the response wasn't absolutely picture perfect in every case. But one of the good news is for us moving forward, but the responsiveness of the county really was extraordinary compared to a lot of other counties throughout the state. Having said that, the good news for us moving forward is we will be operating on all of us. And when I say we, I mean everybody that's on this panel, everybody that's on this call, including the city, will be operating under a much different environment. We can be more meticulous. We can be more thoughtful. We can do some planning and really address a lot of these things so they aren't things that repeat themselves. I feel like the county's getting beat up a little bit here tonight, but I just want to say the circumstances under which they found themselves operating were very trying. And the good news for us is we will be operating under much cooler, a much more thoughtful environment that will result in a much better end product for everybody involved.
Ditto to that. I mean, the county was responsive. The county did operate a very good operation. And like I said, I have not heard any of these complaints. And I think that we would have heard them, but I haven't. I can also say that in recent, I don't know, 2 months ago maybe, or a month ago, when HomeKey ended and they moved to a voucher system, we did receive a call from a community member about a person that was homeless out in front of the Vagabond. It was the county that came to the aid. They provided service. They put him, they housed them, they sheltered them. All that happened because of the county's efforts.
And
Thank you, Emilio.
Yeah, I just want to add, thank you for bringing this up, and thank you, Emilio, for, reaching out to OPD and following up on this that's been brought up today. So thank you.
Okay, this next question is again from Elizabeth Goldner. Maybe this is for Brittany. Who owns the Vagabond property?
Currently, I had that pulled up just so I could remember. It is Vista Oxnard Investments, LLC.
Okay, this next question is from Tim Helton. He says, you've raised the 13 million, but if individuals wanted to contribute to the project, how might they do so?
Larry, do you want to take that? Well, I just know, yeah, so normally whenever someone wants to help our project, really where we tend to need it and want it is on the services and operations side. That could really benefit the best because as we talked about, once the rehab is done, it's really the services that we're focused on. So I know Mercy House, does a lot of great work and they have a program in place to accept donations.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. And Tim, by the way, thank you for the very kind and generous offer.
Absolutely.
I will offer up my colleague's email address again to follow up on this. James Brooks, James, JAMESB @mercyhouse.net. And if you want to just, anybody who wants to get involved in any level, whether it's volunteering or working or donating, go ahead and use James as a portal. We will then sort of distribute it and pass it along to the right staff person on this end. But this way we just have at least a singular email from which to operate. And thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm going to add one more thing, if you don't mind. I mean, definitely in addition to contributing resources directly to Mercy or to the homeless services spectrum or village, be outspoken about that support that you just mentioned. I mean, that is very, very helpful. I can't tell you enough that CDP and Mercy and all of the partners, they're good at what they do. They can apply for the tax credits and the funding and et cetera. They can do that. What oftentimes we need is knowing that there's people out there that support the effort.
Yeah.
This next question, I think, is for Emilio. Will this project be approved through the City of Oxnard Planning Commission or City Council, or is it exempt from that process, and why?
It would have, it's a change in use that would have to go through a permitting process. We'll have to identify that how, I mean, right now it's a hotel, it's going to convert to a permanent supportive housing function. Plus there's actual improvements that will need building permits and et cetera. So all that will have to go through the process.
Okay, I think this one is for you as well, Emilio. It's from Abel Magana. How might this project affect the proposed 2nd Street Oxnard Homeless Solutions Center with the addition of 70 PSH units at Vagabond? Will you be reevaluating the scale and density at 2nd Street? And will there be enough resources to serve both facilities?
It should not have any effect at all on the 2nd Street proposed project. Those two things are independent of each other. And at the 2nd Street project, we are proposing 56 permanent supportive housing units, here 70. We know we need a lot more than 126 supportive housing units, and so we have a lot more work to do. But the two funding sources are distinct, and the need is greater than those two projects alone. So it shouldn't affect that we should continue to go forward.
This next question is from Charlene Schuss. It sounds like this is seed money to get the project started. What are the plans for additional funds to keep the project running, and for how long?
Yeah, I can answer that. I do feel like that's something we've covered. So with our last 10 minutes, we might want to try to address some topics we haven't covered. But again, yes, we have budgeted for the ongoing operations, and again, we will be applying for those low-income housing tax credits and programs that fund homeless housing, and really just trying to help the community and get those, individuals off the street. But again, we have anticipated the future operating costs, so that has been factored in.
Okay, and Elizabeth Goldner asks, what is the value of the property if sold on the market?
So, I mean, again, we don't have a formal appraisal. We just have the amount that we've agreed upon, and that our broker CBRE said, fit the market and fit this project. And that was about $13 million.
Brittany, can you confirm? I mean, we believe this is the market rate transaction, right?
Yes, absolutely. And again, we'll have to have a formal appraisal to support that. So what we did is we had a broker who could find comps and look at the local area, determine that that amount was market rate. So we're definitely not paying above that. We're paying what is comparable for the area. And again, a formal appraisal will be completed. They tend to take about 6 weeks. And as we talked about the timeline, we didn't have the time to complete that, but we are within the market price.
Okay, the next question is from Manuel Herrera. I am concerned that because this is being rushed, it will not be totally thought out. What assurance can you give us that this project will be handled accordingly?
I'm sorry, Jessica, I'm so sorry. Could you please repeat that one more time?
Sure. It reads, I am concerned that because this is being rushed, it will not be totally thought out. What assurance can you give us that this project will be handled accordingly?
Well,
so yes, it's going fast. I'm not so sure that it's being rushed. That implies a little bit of thoughtlessness. So I mean, I do think that we, the collective we, everybody on this call, and even more people that are not on this call, are coming together to consider everything, every potential scenario. So, and we not like we have to do it tomorrow. We have some time still to close the escrow, to do an appraisal, and et cetera. So, I mean, there are things that I suppose could change the project, i.e. if Brittany does the appraisal and the appraisal comes back at $5 million, I'm pretty sure that we're not going to close that escrow at 13. So, I mean, there are things that will make us pivot as we progress in moving forward. I can assure you that all of those steps will be undertook, even though they're going to be undertook fast.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think this feels so fast because we're used to these type of funding sources taking a very long time to go through. But again, with this being a response to the current pandemic and the current crisis, it's moving faster than we've ever seen. But, creating, handling an interim shelter, Mercy House does it all the time. They know how to do it, creating a permanent supportive housing. CDP knows how to do that. We know how to operate them. So everything on the back end, we know how to do, and we're very confident. It just feels so fast because normally this type of funding takes months or years to fully come through. But again, it's just in a response to what's going on right now.
Okay. I'm just going to go through these next two questions quickly because I think we've answered them. How many units will be available and how many people per unit? And how many, and who will take care of medical and mental needs?
I'm so sorry. Could you?
Sure.
So,
What is the number of units and how many people will be living here and who will provide services for the medical and mental needs?
so sorry, Brittany, were you going to talk about the
Yeah.
number? Sorry.
We did talk about 70 units, typically
Right.
one person per unit. But I think really, Mercy, with the supportive services side, that's where we could talk about, potential medical and mental health, maybe case management or, links to other services. I know you guys are great at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Linda and James for the specific, but obviously the county's been a tremendous partner for us in all of our work up in the county as well. And when it comes for, our specific medical and mental health needs, we always partner with local FQHCs, local hospitals, things of that nature. I don't know, and I'm going to look at my staff, Linda and James, if we have identified the medical partner, if we're going to use the same one that we've been using at the Oxnard shelter.
Because I say yes, we are. I don't think we've identified another partner yet. This is a little quick, so that we can sort out. But
and who are we using? Who are we using currently?
Honestly, I don't know, Larry.
Okay.
Just to be honest, I don't want to make anything up, so I don't know.
Sure.
Sorry.
So identifying partners for this project, community partners, will be key and something we'll be doing over the upcoming months.
Okay, and I just noticed that we have only a few minutes left, and I think that this Zoom call might just end very abruptly at 8. So I just scanned through the questions, and I've noticed a few people asking about, is there going to be future opportunities for the community to ask questions and be involved in this decision making? And if they have more questions or concerns once the site is up and running, who do they contact?
We are talking about another one of these when we get a little bit closer to this going forward. Like I said, or like Brittany said, we only received a preliminary reservation of funds. We haven't actually signed anything with the state anyways. So we're talking about that. By all means, you have my contact. It's on the slide on screen right now. I'm happy to receive anything and coordinate a response from any of the panelists.
So we still had just over 10 questions left. I just wanted to let everyone know that I have copied the questions that we didn't get to and also the questions that we did answer, so we can go back and make sure we answer all of the questions that were asked here. But I think in case we do get cut off, I'll leave it at the question and answer period for there. Thank you, everybody.
Right. In that case, by all means, you can continue to post questions online or on the system here. We'll download them and provide a response. And for that matter, even after we terminate the meeting, you can always send me a question to my email address, and I'm happy to respond going forward. So thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you to the panelists and the partners for your involvement and your help in this effort. So we'll be signing off. Did anybody have any closing remarks?
I just want to say, thank you to everyone for joining and letting us answer any of your questions or concerns. I think, we really know what we're doing here, and I think this is going to be great for the community and just really help solve some of the homeless problem that's going on right now. So again, any comments or questions you have going forward that we didn't get to, if you send them to Emilio and they're development related, you can reach out to me or to Mercy House. But, just thanks for being involved and for hearing us.
Yeah, and just to add to what Brittany's saying, thank you all. Thank you to all the partners in the panel and everybody who took their time to listen tonight. And seriously, any critical input, anything that you heard that, gosh, they didn't answer that well, or I have a concern, we want to hear that. We want that critical feedback so we could have the best possible program.
Thank you.
All right, it's 1 minute till. I think we're going to sign off at this point. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.